Sir, wake up! The manor is under attack! There are necromancers everywhere!
Prepare yourself.
I'm gonna see if the master is alright. Hide yourself! There's no way out!
Ugly. What was that? Ow! Die!
Dark Messiah of Might and Magic is probably the worst best game, or the best worst game that I've played recently, which is a strange thing to say in this video series. I'm supposed to tell you about how great these games are, but I simply can't ignore the biggest flaw here because it's so huge. The story is absolute garbage. So as I kick physics objects around at guards and set them on fire, I'll quickly blast through the story here so that we can all forget about it and focus on the really cool stuff. You know, like the staff combat or the slippery ice trap spell. You play as an apprentice called Sareth, tasked by Master Fenrig to travel to Stonehelm, meet the wizard called Menelag, get a crystal, bring it to some temple, get the Skull of Shadows, stop a demon from taking over the world, find out who the Dark Messiah is. You know what? It doesn't matter. It's the most generic story ever, with the most generic protagonists ever, the most boring, dull characters ever, apart from one. Just forget about it. The only important thing to know, which is debatable honestly, is that you're possessed by a succubus called Xana, who is actually quite sarcastic and funny whenever she gets the chance to be. Alright, good, so we're up to speed, and by now you've probably seen some of the combat going on in the background. I'm only really showing the magic spells and the staff combat, but there are other weapons and there's a ton of other stuff you can do, especially with the physics in this game. Like, for example, knocking a set of barrels down to kill a guard, who then falls over and drops a second set on himself. Or maybe tossing a shovel across a garden and killing a guy outright. I know I can certainly dig it, and these are the parts where the game really shines. While I loved Skyrim and can replay that endlessly, I really can by the way, after having now experienced the potential for truly amazing melee combat in Dark Messiah, I'm left wondering how I ever thought Skyrim combat was really that good. In Skyrim you can attack, you can block, cast spells, shield bash and power attack in 4 different directions. And that's cool, that's enough. But in Dark Messiah you can attack, you can block, cast spells, shield bash and power attack in 4 directions. However, you can also on top of this sprint attack, jump attack, adrenaline rush, disarm, kick and various other things, such as every single spell or attack has a multitude of different uses. For example, the backwards staff power attack has a great poke reach to it, and it charges up quickly. While the other ones can stun guys and knock them around and disorient them, give you time to act, and they look quite stylish. The sprinting sword attack can knock people over and stun them and shield bash them and all sorts of things, which then opens them up to being disarmed by attacking their hands specifically. Very cool. Daggers can be thrown at fleeing or unsuspecting enemies, and spells. Oh, the spells are so good. In the footage here, you'll see me using a few spells. Probably my favourite parts of the game, along the Orc Cliffs and on a dock defending a boat from an onslaught of guards. Every spell does something regularly, its normal cast does stuff. Some of them do special things, and all of them do super cool effects if you have adrenaline, which is when the UI goes all red and intense. The telekinesis spell is a prime example of all of these things. You can pick up crates and objects and ragdolling bodies to throw at other enemies and do various hijinks like that, which is always hilarious. You can open doors and chests and you can loot things with it, and with an adrenaline rush you can even pick up and toss living enemies and things around at other people and off cliffs and all sorts of things like that. And this is the coolest thing ever. Oblivion and Skyrim telekinesis was just never nearly as good as Dark Messiah's telekinesis spell. Fireballs, you guessed it, explode. You can throw oil jars on people or on the ground to cover them in tar, set up these traps, and then you can light them on fire and cause all sorts of mess like that. Lightning bolts turn to chain lightning if you have adrenaline. Slippery ice traps can not only make enemies hilariously comically ragdoll all over the floor, but they can also freeze people permanently if you've got the adrenaline. It gets really complicated with the amount of stuff that you can do, and this is only magic. There's also stealth mechanics, various different melee weapons, bows, the rope bow, and all sorts of special enchanted gear that can also do other fancy stuff on top of all these different maneuvers. And they all have intricate animations too, which is just so satisfying to look at. The game can be pretty straightforward if you just play it to win to get to the end, but then you're kind of missing the point here. The environment is such a huge playground. I mean, sure, you could slap a guard around in a really stylish way with your staff until he dies, but why do that when instead you could kick him into those conveniently placed spikes on the wall, or perhaps off a cliff to hear him scream hilariously, or make him slip on some ice and then fall into some water? The possibilities are endless.
What the?
Maybe I could kick a barrel down some stairs which knocks an orc over, and then I could run up to him and finish him off by setting him on fire. Perhaps I could lure a bunch of enemies onto a precariously placed plank of wood or a rope bridge, and then I could cut the supports from underneath them, dropping them hundreds of feet into their deaths. Great fun to listen to and watch.
Stranger here!
Or maybe I could charm a guard from stealth, make him turn on his allies, and then while he's distracting all those dudes, I could climb up a rope arrow that I just set up to complete safety, and they'll never even notice me. Endless opportunities, and that's why this game is so fun. Dark Messiah is amazing because of how fluid the combat feels, while also giving you the opportunity to just mess around and have fun, while simultaneously offering challenging encounters and interesting areas to fight in. It's incredibly fun to kick orcs off cliffs, set people on fire, make swinging chandeliers hit people, stab a cyclops in the eyeball, explore the environment, and just throw objects around. I'm MagicalMike, and I'm Quids In with this game. Cheers.